Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of unprotected talk, borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
Filling in for the doctor, Brian Sussman here on the left coast. Glad to be behind the microphone. Always a privilege, always an honor. 855-400-7282. That's the number. 855-400-SAVAGE. Michael Savage's book, Government Zero, debuts number 3 on the New York Times bestseller list. If you haven't bought a copy, shame on you. Government Zero. No borders, no language, no culture. No borders, no language, no culture. It's amazing. I'm looking over all the things I hope to talk about over the next few hours. And it all fits neatly within this theme. No borders, no language, no culture. Michael Savage sounded the alarm. How these progressives and radical Islamists are working together towards a similar goal. Destroy Western civilization. We're seeing it before our very eyes. This is the big story today, and it fits neatly into that package. No borders, no language, no culture, Government Zero. Obama's officially rejected the Keystone Pipeline. He announced it today. You'll hear some of the sound in just a moment, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. When you hear what Obama has to say, it makes no sense. He's rejected TransCanada's application to build the Keystone XL Pipeline. It's his big gift to the environmental community, and more importantly, it's his big gift to OPEC. His big gift to OPEC. Do you even know who the OPEC nations are, my friend? Do you know who they are? Tell me if these are countries that have our best interest in mind. May we just go through the list? Venezuela. When you think America, do you think Venezuela? When you think American values, do you think Venezuela? How about United Arab Emirates? How about Saudi Arabia? How about Qatar, Nigeria, Libya, Kuwait, Iran, Iraq, Ecuador, Angola, Algeria? That's OPEC. Gift to OPEC today from Barry Obama. What do you know? We'll talk about that. Another story in the news. Most people don't even understand what this is all about, but it's huge. Oh, that House of Representatives, run by Republicans, don't you know? So the House today rejected an amendment that it would have prohibited the Export-Import Bank. The what? I want to know about the Kardashians. The Export-Import Bank from providing loans, loan guarantees, and credit to state sponsors of terrorism. In other words, the House of Representatives are saying, let's keep the door open. If Obama wants to loan a little money, give a little money away to a state sponsor of terrorism such as Iran, that's all good with us. Come on. This is just amazing. Just amazing. We'll talk about the Export-Import Bank. What a joke this is. I mean, you know, Obama, here he is. He's killing the Keystone Pipeline, right? Kills the Keystone Pipeline, which would have provided for real jobs. Some would say, yes, but they're just temporary jobs. Well, okay, temporary jobs. You'll hear Obama. He's saying, what we really need to do is invest in infrastructure in this country. What was the Keystone Pipeline? It's infrastructure. And it's infrastructure that's not paid for by the taxpayer. It's paid for by a Canadian company. Yes, some of the jobs will be temporary in terms of the construction, but there will be long-term jobs along the way, and it will better communities, and it will make us less reliant on other sources of oil. That's exactly what would happen. Import-Export Bank. Okay? We'll talk about that. Oh, well, it was just a matter of time, wasn't it? ExxonMobil is being investigated by the New York Attorney General's office for climate crimes. See, you got to get this book by Savage. Government Zero. No borders, no language, no culture. You see what's happening here? We're being attacked by our very own government. We're being attacked by our very own president. So now we've got the New York Attorney General's office going into the company's record on climate change. ExxonMobil. And it's kind of interesting how all of this occurred. Now Hillary Clinton's quickly piling on. Oh, of course she's piling on. She's calling for an investigation as well. Isn't it rather interesting that her investigation comes at a time where, looking at last year, Exxon didn't give the Clinton Foundation any money? I'm not making this up. Then you got Bernie Sanders out there, Bernie, who, and I agree with Michael on this, Bernie is only running because Hillary wants him to. Look at all the candidates. They're all being selected by Hillary because it's in Hillary's best interest to have a guy who's an admitted socialist running so she looks a little more centrist. Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is out there talking it up as well. Says the United States should curb fossil fuels. That's it. We'll curb them. Let's make lots of money for those green investors out there. There's one guy that's making so much sense today. You'll hear from him. I've met him on one occasion. He's a seemingly nice man. Dana Rohrabacher. Most of you around the country have never heard of him. He's a Republican representative from Southern California. You got 435 of these people in the House of Representatives. You can't keep track of them all. Some of them are good guys. Most of them are schmoes. My opinion. How do we come up with these people? We got 310 million people in this country, and you look in Washington, D.C., and this is the best we can do? Really? Anyway, Dana Rohrabacher. See, it's as if he read Government Zero. You're going to hear a quote from him a little bit later in the program where he says, what we are witnessing is the destruction of Western civilization. And what is he talking about? He's talking about all these various things, but specifically he's talking about this flow of the Syrian refugees into Germany. Isn't it interesting? You know, every generation or two you get a German leader who decides to wreck Europe. And I think that's what we have in that of Angela Merkel. Oh, then a story. And again, Brian Sussman filling in for Michael Savage. And the phone number is 855-400-SAVAGE. I have a morning show in San Francisco on KSFO. That's Mike's flagship station, the station that he really built with his show when it launched in the 90s. 21 years ago, I believe. And I was a listener to his program then. But so now I host the morning show on that station. Anyway, long story short, we talked about this morning. And it's not getting proper coverage. If Savage were here, he'd tee off on this big time. But this has to do with the young freshman at UC, that would be University of California, Merced. It's just amazing to me. Have you noticed that ISIS and the Palestinian and others, from that particular sect, this very peaceful religious people sect, have you noticed they've got all these training videos out now on how to kill somebody with a knife? And if you watch the videos, it's kind of like a step 1, step 2, step 3, boom, they're dead. Move on. So now we have a young man in Merced, California, named Faisal Muhammad, who tries to kill 4 people with a knife. Oh, no coincidence. No. I mean, this is strictly coincidence. There's nothing here to see. Move away. No, this isn't terrorism. No. I mean, immediately they tell us it's not terrorism. No, he was upset because he got kicked out of a study group. That's what they're saying. Study group. So if he was kicked out of the study group, why didn't he target people in the study group? Instead, he goes after a cop. Instead, he goes after a construction worker. And he goes after a couple kids on campus. He gets shot dead in the process. But I'm just kind of wondering, how did they know so quickly that, no terrorism here? No. Quote from the sheriff. There are lots of people of the Muslim faith that are kind, gentle, and loving. One person who commits a crime can't be grouped into that hole. Oh, thank you, Mr. Sheriff. The sheriff also goes on to call what this guy did silly. And when this guy invoked Allah in the process because he was carrying a manifesto, the likes of which they haven't released, but they did say it included Allah. The sheriff actually goes so far as to say, well, if I committed some silly act like this, I'm a Christian, so I'd probably say something about Jesus. What? We're not stupid. Oh, look away. Go ahead. Nothing here. Unbelievable. So we'll talk about that. But what they're calling this is the knife intifada. Palestinians, ISIS. Oh, and by the way, regarding the kid in Merced, just want to let you know, little footnote. Hello. The footnote is, as soon as this kid's name was released, who was there thanking him for what he did? ISIS. They tweeted out a praise to this guy as soon as his name was released. Do you think maybe he'd been in touch with ISIS in any way, shape, or form? Do you think just maybe? No, look away. There's nothing here. Knife intifada. That's what they're calling it. ISIS, Palestinians, etc. They're calling it the knife intifada. And it's a type of suicide attack. It's just what this kid did. Just what he did. The killer stabs as many people as he can before he's shot. It's a suicide attack. That's what this kid did. He killed as many people as he could before he got shot. The Palestinians are doing that. This kid did it. I'd like to know a little bit more about this background, this Faisal Muhammad. I'm just kind of curious, as to where his family might come from. And I'm curious also, when did they arrive in this country? I sure hope there's some investigating going on. Oh, no, case is already closed. Yeah, case is closed. No terrorism here. Let's move on. Got that in the news. Some other stuff. Oh, this is another one. Again, no borders, no language, no culture, government zero. Story coming out today about an illegal alien accused of a fatal hit and run. Yeah, guy in this country who had been deported 6 times. Okay, so Donald Trump, there's a little more to what this guy's saying, folks. I'm just telling you, we need somebody in the White House. We need people in the House of Representatives. We need people in the Senate that know what time it is. And what time is it? It's government zero time. We need a government that will protect our borders and our language and our culture. Buy the book. Go to a bookstore. Go to michaelsavage.com. Go to amazon.com. Buy this book. All right, we've got the callers coming up. Brian Sussman. Always a pleasure to get behind this microphone and fill in for Michael Savage. 855-400-SAVAGE. That's 855-400-7282. Brian Sussman on this, The Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now. 855-400-SAVAGE. 855-400-7282. Savage.
My Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com. It's the only company I trust to protect my wealth. Call 800-BUICO.
Brian Sussman in for Savage, the Savage Nation, 855-400-SAVAGE. That's the number. Government zero. I'm going to read a portion of government. This is a great book. I've enjoyed this book. I knew it was going to be a blockbuster, and quite frankly, I knew it would be top on the New York Times bestseller list. It debuted at number 3. You got to get a copy of this book. I'm going to read a portion coming up in the next segment here on the Savage Nation. Something that Mike talks about a lot, something that I talk about a lot, and we were just talking about it. And that is this German refugee crisis. It's pretty sick what's happening with this particular crisis. And the fact of the matter is, the Germans started this. They defied the European Union laws, and they allowed this to occur. And I don't quite understand. You know, in the beginning we heard, well, they want cheap labor. They've got a problem. They've created, it's literally like a human train coming up from the Middle East and North Africa. And it's impacting the other countries around them. I have a son that was planning on spending a year in Switzerland on a particular project. Guess what? The Swiss said, sorry, nobody's coming. Nobody's coming to our country because we got this crisis. We don't want these people here, so we're not allowing anybody in. See, there are still some countries around the world that really take immigration seriously. We don't. But that's government zero. No borders, no language, no culture. So I'm going to read a portion from that in just a moment. But it's just amazing to me. What is Merkel doing? What is Merkel doing? Every generation or two, there's a German leader that decides to destroy Europe, and that's what she's doing. This is going to be the death of Western civilization. Because when you look at how many kids the Europeans are having these days, I've heard Savage talk about this, 0.5, maybe 1 child per family? And then you look at these people coming from those places and how many kids they have. It's just like Yasser Arafat, head of the PLO, once said, paraphrasing, we will defeat you with our wombs. But I do want to go to the callers right now in the Savage Nation. David is calling from Michigan. David, you're on the air.